الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل في كل سنبلة 100 حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء والله واسع عليم يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم وأزلفت الجنة للمتقين. It is the normal practice of Ilahi Jamaats to always find a way to please their Lord for the goal of having their Lord's nearness and love, or qurb. We are fortunate that we have accepted the Imam of the time, who we as Ahmadi Muslims consider to have the true understanding of the Holy Quran, just the way the Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. And he warned us that our purpose is not only lahab olab and worldly achievements, but these things were created to be a trial for us, so we could see the difference between a believer and a non-believer. Not saying that a mu'min doesn't achieve this as well, but only as much as his life needs. A believer should always remember 2 things. 1, the worship of God, and number 2, caring for Allah's creations, Allah's makhluk. And if you have done these 2 things, then you have achieved your purpose. And Allah never leaves the one who does both of these things. Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wassalam states that every person's sincerity can only be judged by the service he offers. O my dear ones, this is the time for helping the faith and fulfilling its requirements. Make use of it, for this time will never return. Allah has taught mankind in many different ways of how to go about reaching this true purpose of life, which is وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I have not created the man and jinn except that they may worship me. The Holy Prophet ﷺ was a human being who showed us the example, which was then lost over hundreds of years. And now again, as we have accepted the promised Messiah ﷺ, we are taught through different methods and schemes of how to attain that qurb and nearness of Allah Ta'ala. One of the verses that I recited in the beginning is from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 262, and the translation of it is, the similitude of those who spend their wealth for the cause of Allah is like the similitude of a grain of corn, which grows 7 ears, in each ear 100 grains, and Allah multiplies it further for whomsoever He pleases, and Allah is bountiful, all-knowing. Regarding the commentary of this verse, Hazrat Muslim Maud Radhiyallahu anhu states that in order to prepare Muslims for the promised rise in prosperity, Allah exhorts the faithful to spend freely in the cause of Allah, pointing out that their case is like that of a seed which is multiplied 700 times and even more. Which means 700 times is the least reward that a Muslim will be given, and this Muslim who spends in the way of Allah, then there is no limit to what God will bestow over and above this. And then Hazur Radhiyallahu anhu continues by saying that if you look at the history, this promise was fulfilled to the very letter. For the reward which God gave to the early Muslims in the world was not only 700 times of what they spent in the cause of Allah, but immeasurably greater. And the reward in the world to come will certainly be greater still. Is it on? Now this statement of Hazur, talking about the prosperity of the Muslims who spend in the way of Allah, correlates exactly with that hadith of Tirmizi, in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ says that whoever spends anything in the cause of Allah is rewarded 700 times more. So it goes to show that it is both mentioned in the Quran and in ahadith. And many of us have actually experienced this firsthand. And if we haven't experienced this firsthand, we often hear Hazur Anwar Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Asra'il Aziz's Friday sermons, in which he mentions stories of people who had nothing and gave in the way of Allah, and Allah Ta'ala gave them manifold. Now regarding wealth, the promised Messiah ﷺ states, it goes without saying that you cannot love two things at the same time. And this is also a metaphor that you cannot sail in two ships at one time. What's going to happen? If one ship starts sailing, you're either going to fall in one of them or you're going to fall into the water. Hazur says, it is not possible for you to love wealth as well as to love Allah. You can love only one of them. And lucky is he who loves Allah. If any one of you loves Him and spends that his or her wealth in His cause, I am certain that his or her wealth will increase more than that of others. For wealth doesn't come by itself. Rather, it comes by Allah's will. Whoever parts with some of his wealth for the sake of Allah, he will surely get it back, and then manifold. But he who loves his wealth and does not serve it in the way of Allah as he should, will surely lose his wealth. Do not ever imagine that your wealth comes of your own effort. Hazrat Masih Maud says that all the work that we do, all the money that we gain is not because of our own effort. And do not ever imagine that you do a favor to Allah or His appointed one by offering your money or helping in any other way. Rather, it is His favor upon you that He calls you to this service. Now, close to the demise of the promised Messiah ﷺ, Allah said to him that bahut thode din reh gaye hain, that not too many days are left. And then said, tamam hawadis aur ajaibat-e qudrat dikhane ke baad tumhara hadsa aayega. That after showing some calamities in this world, your passing will happen, or your passing will occur. And this points to the fact that it is but inevitable that before my death, Hazrat Masih Maud says, that before my death, the world should be subjected to some calamities, and some extraordinary signs of power are shown, so that the world gets ready for a revolution. And after that revolution, my death should take place. And I was shown a spot in a vision, and was told that this site of your grave I saw an angel who was measuring the ground, and at arriving at a certain spot, he said to me that this place is your grave. Then I was shown a grave which was brighter than silver, and all of its soil was silver. And it was said to me, this is your grave. I was shown a place which was named Bahishti Maqbara, and it was conveyed to me that it contained the graves of such righteous members of the Jamaat as are destined to dwell in heaven. And not only God revealed that this graveyard is Bahishti, but also said, Unzila fiha kullu rahmatin, that every kind of blessing has been descended onto this graveyard. And there is no single kind of blessing that the inmates of this graveyard have not partaken of. Now this was a vision that Hazur alayhi salam saw wrote in his book Al-Wasiyyat in 1905. And one of the important things to keep in mind, there are two main topics of that book. One was obviously the Nizam Wasiyyat, the scheme of Wasiyyat, and the second was regarding Khilafat. Hazur gave his example and then gave the example of the Holy Prophet ﷺ that after he passed away, when the Muslims thought that now, or when the non-Muslims thought that now this is our time, we are victorious, that their master, beloved Muhammad ﷺ has passed away, now we can be victorious over them. But then God defeats them the second time by raising a Khalifa on the precepts of Messiah or prophethood. So Hazur talks about that these two things are very, very well connected. The scheme of Wasiyyat and also the system of Khilafat. And Hazrat Muslim Maud talks about one of the verses that I recited in the beginning, that it points towards the time of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. And it is a prophecy for the time of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam. The translation of the verses that were recited in the beginning, the second verse that I recited was that the day there will not benefit anyone, wealth or children, but only one who comes to Allah with a sound heart. That no matter what you've made in this life, no matter how much money you've made, how much influence you have in this life, it's not going to amount to anything in the afterlife. And that paradise will be brought near to the righteous. And no matter how much money you have made, it is only the righteous that will enter paradise. Hazrat Muslim Maud states that I understand that its correct interpretation regarding this verse is Wasiyyat. During the time of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, paradise will be so manifest that people shall be convinced that so and so has actually entered it. Now this is something that we've all experienced one way or another. We have something very, very qimti, or something that's very, close to our heart, something that we love. As children, there's things like phones or games, and then as we grow older, a nice house, a good job, all these things. You want something more, and once you receive that, what happens? The value loses itself. You start not liking it the way you liked it in the beginning. We've all experienced it. When I first got my phone in high school, I remember I used to take such good care of it. I put a protector on it, screen protector. I took care of it, made sure I didn't get any scratches on it. But after a few months, when the new iPhone came out, what happened? I started throwing my phone on my bed when I came home from school, playing catch with it. This is something that we all face. You lose interest in things because new things keep coming out. And this correlates exactly with the hadith that the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said, that no matter how much man has, he will always want more. That even if you give him a valley of gold, he will still want a second valley of gold. This shows us that no matter what we achieve in this world, it's only temporary. You look at the great kings and the pharaohs. What happened to their wealth? It is buried with them. Did they take it with them to the afterlife? It's still there in Egypt. If you look at the pyramids, there's still treasures there. What happened to that? Now, before we do anything in our lives, we always outweigh the pros and cons and try to understand the importance of it and whether we need it or it's something that we need or something that we want. which begs the question as to what is the importance of the system of Wasiyyat. And the answer is actually relatively simple. Today, we live in a society that considers Islam to be a very big threat. That the word of Islam denotes the word terrorism. And the so-called Muslim extremists that are living in the East are proving this point, that the media portrays that Islam is nothing but terrorism. The people, the Muslim clerics, the extremists are actually proving this point. And because of this, many false allegations fall on our beloved Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that na'udhu billah, he was nothing more than a warlord, that he spread Islam with his sword and forced it upon people. Hazur Ayyadallahu Ta'ala bin Asal Aziz mentioned in a Friday sermon of 2006 that in this age of the Messiah, the real jihad is that of financial sacrifice. This facilitates publication of literature in defense of Islam, translations of the Holy Quran in various languages, and dispatching it to the corners of the earth, establishing missions all over the world, training missionaries to be sent all over the world. Hazur Ayyadallahu Ta'ala bin Asal Aziz says that mosques are built with this, as are schools and colleges and hospitals to serve the suffering of humanity. So this system of Wasiyyat falls back to that main point that I mentioned in the beginning. What is the purpose of our existence? Hazur says, until such a time that the message of Islam reaches each corner of the earth, and to each person in each of that corner, and until such time that each need of the poor and needy is not met, this jihad has to continue, and each Ahmadi has to take part in it according to their capacity. Today, when Islam is being attacked from all sides, and the community of the promised Messiah alayhi salam has been raised through his means to present the conclusive arguments and proofs, we should be attentive towards financial sacrifice. Otherwise, we will be those who are destroyed and would be deprived of serving faith. And being deprived of serving faith is indeed destruction. Hazur continues to say that the real objective of financial sacrifice is to attain the nearness of Allah rather than collecting just money. Hazrat Muslim Maud anhu also mentions some of the things that the money collected from the Chanda and Wasiyyat, what it goes for. He states, it would not be correct to assume that the money collected under the system of Wasiyyat only is spent on the propagation of Islam. Rather, the promised Messiah alayhi salam has drawn attention to the orphan and the needy and has pointed out that they also would be entitled to relief out of this fund. These words point to the Islamic social and economic system under which it is directed that food, clothing, shelter, medical relief, and means of education must be provided for every human being. In the circumstances of today, this is Hazrat Muslim Maud saying this about 60, 70 years ago. Hazur says that in the circumstances of today, this cannot be accomplished by means of taxes alone. It is necessary that wealth and property should be devoted towards this purpose. Now the vision that the promised Messiah ﷺ and Hazrat Muslim Maud had in regards to the Wasiyyat is summed up in the speech of Hazrat Muslim Maud, which was then later published as Nizam-e-Nau, which Hazur mentions. He states, this system will help to abolish want and distress by making adequate provisions for the needs of all individuals. An orphan will not have to beg, nor will a widow have to ask for charity, nor a needy person to suffer anxiety. This system will be a mother to children, a father to youth, and will afford security to women. Under this system, not by means of compulsion or coercion, but out of real affection and goodwill, a brother will be eager to help his brother, nor will such sacrifice be in vain. Every giver will be recompensed many times over by God. The rich will suffer no loss, nor will the poor suffer privation. Nations will not fight nations, nor class will contend against class. Hazur continues by saying that many people might, raise an objection at this, that this community is so small. Keep in mind, Hazur has mentioned this many years ago, that at that time the community was still smaller than what it is now, and how it had such ambitious goals. Hazur says that, to this my reply is that it is part of our firm faith and belief that the spread of our movement has been decreed by God. Under divine revelations and in accordance with divine promises, we firmly believe that in the course of a half a century or a century, Ahmadiyyat is bound to become dominant. We believe equally firmly that the system which was inaugurated by the promised Messiah ﷺ is bound to establish itself successfully. Heaven and earth may pass, but God's words cannot be unfulfilled. And these are the strong words uttered by our second Khalifa radhiyallahu anhu, that the Jamaat of the promised Messiah ﷺ is promised victory. And it depends on you, all of you that are sitting in front of me, that what role you want to play. Whether it is going to be on the front lines of that victory or sitting all the way in the back. And as we see where this money goes to, by joining the system of Wasiyyat, then as it was mentioned in the beginning, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that our sole purpose is for Haququllah and Haququl Ibad. Then in regards to something that hits very close to us as American Ahmadi Muslims, Hazrat Muslim Maud Razila Anhu says that this scheme is already operational in Pakistan and India. But I wish and I pray that America proves to be the third such country as would adopt this scheme and participate very vastly in laying foundations for humanity's welfare, prosperity, and progress. Brothers, we are weak, but our God is strong and almighty. We can do little, and He can do everything. Be sure that His help is speeding. Be sure that His help is speeding towards you. Indeed, He Himself stands at your door waiting to enter. Spring up, therefore, and open wide your doors for Him to enter. When God enters your homes and fills your hearts, life will become radiant for you, and you will be glorified on this earth as He is glorified in the heavens. May God be with you, Ameen. These were the words of Hazrat Muslim Maud Razila Anhu. Then, if we continue, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis Rahimahullah alayh, he said regarding the system of Wasiyyat, that this does not mean merely to sacrifice 1/10 of one's property. Rather, it is a system which lifts man from the depths of this earth and elevates him to the heights of heaven. Now this is something that we all know, that is proven through the Quran. That Allah Ta'ala states that every person's heaven and hell is also on this world. So this ties exactly with that verse that was recited in the beginning, that those people that joined this system, since this was a prophecy for this Wasiyyat scheme of Wasiyyat, the paradise will become manifest for them. At the concluding address of Jalsa Salana UK in 2004, Hazrat Amirul Mu'mineen Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Asal Aziz expressed his desire. He said, "My wish is that members in every Jamaat of every country of the world, as are earning and Jannah paying, at least 50% of them enroll in this grand system established by Hazrat Aqdas Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam." Hazur expressed this wish in 2004. And now we are in 2019, 15 years later, and we still are not close to reaching this target that Hazur so much intended and wished. And before I came, I thought it would be appropriate to look at the standings of this Jamaat in regards to Wasiyyat. And the numbers were very, very upsetting. Let alone the general public, some of the office bearers of this Jamaat have not signed up for Wasiyyat. And as many people understand the concept of business and how it works, how can someone sell a product he himself doesn't believe in? You know, we consider ourselves to be the rightful Jamaat of the promised Messiah ﷺ. Hazur had this tawakkul, expectation from all of us sitting here that we would join this system of Wasiyyat. 15 years ago, Hazur desired for us to be at 50%. And we know that even a desire or wish of our beloved Hazur is like a command for us. And this, unfortunately, I am sad to say that this Jamaat is only at 20%. I looked at the numbers before coming. Only 20%, it's over 15 years. And this goes not only for office bearers. Keep this in mind, I'm not here to pick on the office bearers. I'm here for every single one of you sitting in this room, sitting upstairs. Many Lajna members also think that since their husbands are Musis, they don't have any need to join the system of Wasiyyat, which is wrong. This scheme is for everyone. And those Lajna members who have joined Wasiyyat and their husbands and children have not, should encourage them to join as well. And as far as the Khudam and the young Lajna as well, Hazur in that same address where he mentioned his desire of 50%, said that they should be at the forefront. He said there is no point if you have lived your life and spent all of your money on useless things, and now when your feet are dangling in your graves, meaning you're close to your death, you decide you want to do Wasiyyat. These are really, really strong words of Hazur. And this, I keep saying it, he mentioned this in 15 years ago. And those who don't care to do Wasiyyat, the promised Messiah ﷺ has warned them too. Hazrat Muslim Maud mentioned this in Nizam-e-No, that this scheme will differentiate between a believer and a hypocrite. Now yes, it's true, nobody is forced to do Wasiyyat, but keep in mind, this is a wish that Hazur had. And it is the Sunnat of Allah for those who declare themselves to be believers, to Allah to test them. Now we have been hearing the series of Friday sermons of Hazur Anwar Ayyadullah bin Nasr al-Aziz, of the companions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ who took part in the Battle of Badr. And they were put to test by this. They sacrificed everything. So much so they sacrificed their lives. We as Ahmadi Muslims are being told to sacrifice a few dollars. And we do not have enough courage to stand up and do this. Again, my brothers, I'm not here to make anyone feel bad, but to make you understand and realize what Hazur expects from you. I spent 7 years of Jamia. I sacrificed my life for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. And Hazur put me on this duty to make sure people understand. 7 years of Jamia is not an easy task. To go sit in an office and make people understand the importance of it. I know many people have a reluctancy in doing Wasiyyat, and it's normal, everybody does it. It's, the hardest thing to give is something that you love the most. But that's the thing. That's Allah's rule, that if you give something that you love the most, Allah Ta'ala will give you many times more. Now, in regards to this, where people say, I'm not at that level that Hazrat Masih Maud wants me to be at before I join the system of Wasiyyat. Hazur mentions in Al-Wasiyyat, the book, that this person should be a muttaqi. This person should be reading prayers 5 times a day with congregation. How many of us pray 5 times a day in congregation? Such a simple, basic thing of Islam. So people say, we're not at that level that Hazur has expectations of. And in this, I came across something, a very beautiful analogy by our respected Naib Amir Sahib, Fahim Yunus Sahib. And he related a hadith which is narrated by Hazrat Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, in which he says that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Satan ties 3 knots on the back of your head while you're asleep. On every knot, he puts the saying, and on every knot he says to the person, the night is long, stay asleep. And when you wake up and remember Allah, one of those 3 knots is undone. Then when you perform wuzu, the second knot is undone. And then when you stand up and pray, the 3rd knot is undone. And you will wake up energetic with a good heart. And otherwise, if you stay asleep and listen to the shaitan or Satan, you will wake up lazy and with a mischievous heart. So when a believer, from this hadith, what do we understand? That when a believer wants to wake up for Fajr, there's one thing that stops him. It is shaitan. Shaitan always delays goodness. He tells the person in his ears, you know what, you have enough time, stay asleep. This is a nice, warm, comfortable bed. You don't need to wake up. You don't need to do wuzu. You don't need to offer prayers. Just like this, when many of us say, I have enough time, I can do wasiyyat later. I'm still too young, I don't need to do wasiyyat. I'm still starting up my business, I don't have enough funds to do wasiyyat. Keep in mind, this is not your heart telling you that you're delaying in goodness. This is in fact shaitan telling you. The same thing that he told that believer who was trying to wake up for Fajr. That hey, you still have a lot of time before Fajr. How many of us know what our tomorrow brings? How many of us know what tomorrow lies? Then, something funny is that when shaitan actually calls us to the material world, he doesn't delay us at all. Not even the slightest. Matter of fact, he says, call now and I'll give you a good offer. And then even then, if you don't run to materialism then, he says, you know what? That's fine. Call now in the next 5 minutes and I will double your offer for the price of one. And even then when we don't call, what happens? Then the screen starts flashing and it says, okay, fine. If you call within the next 3 minutes, you get free shipping and handling as well. My brothers and sisters, this blessed scheme of Wasiyyat has been calling us for 114 years, begging us to come and reap its benefits. And now again, our beloved Huzur, may Allah be his helper, is asking us again to call right now. But how many of us are calling the way that Shaitan calls us to materialism? How many of us are running and rushing to it to get that free shipping and handling? I will end with the quote of our beloved Huzur in regards to the stigma that many Ahmadis have in regards to delaying in goodness when it comes to Wasiyyat. Huzur Ayyadallahu Ta'ala bin Asal Aziz says that some people say that their standard of righteousness is not yet at a level where they can meet the standards set by the promised Messiah alayhi salam. Such people should know that this Nizam-e-Wasiyyat is such a revolutionary system that if you sincerely join it, and after joining it you strive to improve yourself, then through the blessings of this system, the spiritual change that would otherwise take years will happen in days. And that which would take days will occur in hours. My dear brothers and sisters, I am here humbly with that call of your Khalifa who was here just 7-8 months ago, 15-20 minutes away. You know, this is something that I mentioned earlier, where this money is going to. It's going to places like that mosque that's built. This place, mosques that were built. Like the way Hazur traveled to Guatemala for the service of humanity. There's no other leader who is doing that much the way our Khalifa, our beloved Khalifa is doing. In these last few blessed days of Ramadan, we are told to join in goodness. So right now, Allah Ta'ala has given us an opportunity for that call now and get the 2 rewards. We will be doing something good in this blessed month of Ramadan, and we will be joining the system of Wasiyyat, which the promised Messiah ﷺ has prayed so fervently for those people. May Allah enable us all to say labbaik to the call of our beloved Huzur Anwar Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Asal Aziz. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa barik wa sallam. Innaka Hamidun Majid. And before I conclude, I have brought some Wasiyyat forms, applications along with me. I've sent some upstairs to the ladies as well as some jewelry assessment forms. And I have some for the men in the back. And I would encourage our Khuddam and young Lajna especially to step forward and say labbaik, because it is our Huzur who's asking for us to do this. Now, may Allah Ta'ala enable us all to reap the full blessings of this month of Ramadan, as well as the blessings that are associated with the system of Wasiyyat. Now, if anybody has any questions in regards to this, I can take some questions, or if not, we still have, I think, about 10-15 minutes left till Iftari. Does anyone have any questions, even from upstairs? Do they have a mic system upstairs?
So after you fill the forms out, how long is the process after that?
The question was asked that after you fill the forms out, how long is the process? Usually, it's a pretty long process. So sometimes it depends too. Sometimes it takes a few months. Like the quickest I've ever seen was about 3 months, and then my personal, like for example, my Wasiyyat itself took 3 years to get accepted. But that's only the fact that you get a member code. It's about one thing that you got to keep in mind, that Allah Ta'ala looks at the intentions of mankind, and somebody who has true and right intentions, Allah Ta'ala will bless you accordingly. And if you intend to do Wasiyyat, you have an option on that form to say that whether you want to start paying Chanda Hissa Ahmad or Chanda Wasiyyat starting now, or starting the day you get your Wasiyyat number, which is when you actually get accepted. So then again, it varies and it depends on case to case. Yes?
So the Wasiyyat number is different from your member code?
Yes, the Wasiyyat number is different from your member code number. So anybody who is a Musi here knows that they have a Wasiyyat number as well as a member code.
Yes.
Yes?
Member code and Wasiyyat number different?
Yes, they're different. Member code and Wasiyyat number are different. Yes.
I have Wasiyyat number 19,711, whereas my USA code is 33468.
Yeah, so basically, again, they're 2 different numbers. The US Jamaat has its own system of giving member codes, and this Nizam-e Wasiyyat goes back to Sadr Anjaman, which is in Rabwa. So every single case, when you apply, that form physically goes to Rabwa, and it is approved through Majlis Karpadaz over there. Are there any questions from the ladies' side? Again, I'm only here not to say negative things about anyone in this Jamaat, but it's just something that Hazur tells us every Friday, apna jaiza liya kare, to come and look at your own self and how much. Everybody knows hum kitne pani mein, right? So everybody should take their own jaiza and understand what the case is. And based off of that, we should say labbaik to our Huzur. If there's no more questions, I think we should take the time and do zikr ilahi, since it is the last few days of this blessed month, Ramadan. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa barik wa sallam, innaka hamidun majid.